What's up, guys? Welcome back to Jerk Solves It. Today I am going to be making a gear shift knob for a car with resin. So I'm just starting out putting the resin in. I decided to add a black flower, as well as some pink coloring just for like some extra looks. I did this in multiple layers because um, this kind of epoxy resin couldn't be poured very deeply. I'll put a link to this resin. It was very cheap. It was about $30 for this 2 liter set. And as soon as it was dry, it did take, nights and nights. I had to pour it every 4 hours just to make sure it was still tacky when I poured the new layer, to make sure the layers adhered to each other well. And then now I'm taking off the mold that I made with plexiglass and silicone. Obviously, there's still silicone all on the outside of it. Now I just shaved off a little bit of the excess on the outside, just to get it square, to make sure that when I put it on the lathe, it will be flat on the end. I had to do multiple passes. I just put it in the lathe, and didn't want it to get damaged, so I put some pieces of steel around it, and put a little hole on the end to get the other part of the lathe into it. And I started off thinking this would be an easy process, using the tools that I got. I got some tools from Harbor Freight, which weren't very expensive. And I quickly realized it's much harder than you think, especially with epoxy resin. With wood, I tested it. It was very easy, but this epoxy resin was like glass almost, and it was chipping large chunks out. And I realized that this may not be the best idea or best way to do it. It was also taking very long. It was very tiring. And yeah, I didn't want to mess this up, especially because I spent all this time and money in it already. So I quickly realized that I could use the lathe parts that were already on there, and I just shaved down this part to the diameter that I thought I wanted it at, and I just put it on so it automatically went across, and then I started using a vacuum. Now I'm just sanding with multiple different grits, dry sanding, and this is when it's done, mainly the shape, and I just left the ends on so that I still had something to attach to the lathe. So as you can see, this is like very close to finished. You can even see, you have that like good grip holding action. It's also not see-through right now because it hasn't been sanded and stuff very much. So yeah, started with wet sanding, 100 grit, and just thoroughly went through, when I was done, wiped it off with some isopropyl alcohol, and then went to 240 grit with wet sanding as well. And I just went through that, and as you can see, it gets clearer and clearer. Then went to 1,000 grit, then 2,000, and I really just gradually go up, then to 3,000, just to get that smooth and the shine. Then 7,000 grit, and I wasn't 100% sure, but I think CC 5,000 grit is smoother than the 7,000, at least the results that I saw. So I did that. Then I wiped it off with rubbing alcohol, and this was just from sanding, which was an incredible outcome just from sandpaper, and not even the polish. So now I am going to use this novice plastic polisher that I found, which I found to be a really good polisher for this, and it worked very well. The next step was to put the kind of screw hole nut kind of thing that it would go into the car with. So basically I have to cut off the end right there, and then drill a hole and insert something which I will then glue in place, which is that gray stuff. I used, I believe, some kind of epoxy just to hold this in, and basically that metal piece is what is around the lathe part right there. And it was definitely a scary process because you could mess up the whole thing, but I was able to get it done. And I don't know if you guys realized, but I did make where I'm pointing at a little bit smaller in diameter than the top part, just because I wanted a little different shape and not just the same shape all the way. Then I attached the other end with a bolt going into my threading that I had that will screw into the car, and I cut off the end part that was in the lathe before, and sanded that down. I did the same sanding process from 100 grit all the way to 7,000, and then 5,000 grit, and then I used this chuck to bolt it in and hold it into the lathe. And then after that, it was just a simple process of polishing this whole thing. So again, I just sanded down this end part, which didn't take very long. Definitely a simple process, just tiring. And this is me just sanding that end down, getting it to the right grit, going through the same process as I did with the other ones. I will definitely leave a link for some of the things like epoxy and the polisher compound in the description for you guys. So if you need to build something like this, you can. Again, you can get the lathe tools simply at Harbor Freight. A lathe obviously isn't going to be something that's necessarily easy to find. I use this one just at my school. And then, you can see that it just has a really good shine just from sanding. You can see it there, which I'm really happy to see how well it looks. So this is me just doing the number 3 compound, the one that's made for heavy scratches, getting out those deep scratches that are really difficult to get in. And the links to these will be in the description to these this novice polishing kit. It even came with this cloth that helps you wipe it. And then I moved to the number 2, which was a little lighter, got rid of the scratches from the number 3, and then just kind of smoothened it out even more, made it more shiny. And then I moved just to the last one, number 1, which gave it a really shiny look, which is what you get here. It came out with a beautiful outcome, something that was really surprising that I didn't expect at all, but it is really a beautiful look. I hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys in the next video.